You're using GTO Wizard wrong and it's costing you a lot of money. I'm going to show you why. So here's just a couple examples. Here's one where ICM 37% left. You're in the small blind, 25 bigs, and the big blind has 9. I guess 10 if you add their big blind. So you're shoving effectively for 10 bigs. And I think a lot of people are going to find the ace X. They're going to find a lot of the king X. They might miss some of these suited connectors. But what I'm trying to tell you is you can go even more bananas than this. We cover them. They are not going to call properly. So let's just say we shove 6-5 offsuit, which says it's losing zero point zero 0.01 in EV. Or let's say we shove Jack 4 offsuit or 9-4 suited. I'm advocating we can shove these. We could just go completely bananas. Reason being is GTO Wizards just assuming big blind playing perfectly. So let's look at their calling range. So it's assuming they're calling queen 6 suited, queen 7 suited, 10-8 suited, king 2 suited, king 4 off, king 5 off, king 6 off, queen 8 off. I think you get the idea. They're clearly not calling this wide. And if they are, like, good for them. But how often do you see it? And we're looking at 37% ICM. So let's just say you're playing a $400 buy-in live at the WSOP circuit. This means late registration's over. They probably put the prize pool up on the board. You got the ticking prizes. First place is announced. You got about a third of the field left. If you're shoving this wide, people aren't just going to call you in a live tournament that they not only spent $400 to enter, but they might have drove a couple hours, had to get a hotel, bunch of stuff. They want to tell their buddies they cashed, they bagged. They're just not going to call you with queen 6 suited. They're not going to call you with queen 8 off. They might not even call you with ace deuce off. At my local game, which is only like $160 buy-in, we were already in the money at this point, and I got short. I had like 5 big blinds. I shoved blind versus blind with ace 5 offsuit, and the guy had heaps. Need 10 called me with ace 8. I was like, dude, that's a snap call. I didn't like braid him or anything. Don't get, I was just like, oh, like easy call. Like you like because he still wasn't sure if it was correct. But yeah, you'll run into that. And no big deal. My hand was a standard shove. He had a standard call. But if he's tanking with ace 8 offsuit, what does that tell me? I should probably be going pretty bananas. Maybe not with 5 big blinds because they'll find the call a little bit easier. But especially when I cover like this spot we're looking at, I have 25 big blinds and they have 10 with a third of the field left. I should just be shoving any 2 cards. Maybe not these absolute worst hands, but if they're supposed to be calling with these hands, and they're not, I'm pretty sure if we were to node lock this, it would just say any 2 cards and we're printing. So I think you get the idea there. Just shove wider, especially if they're tight. Even if they're not tight, you could still just get away with this range. You're probably still not shoving this wide. But just one reason you're probably using GTO Wizard wrong is because it's just assuming everyone's calling perfectly any shove spot you look at. So in general, you could probably shove a bit wider than you think because people are just calling too tight. And that's where you should be using a program like ICMizer or Hold'em Resources Calculator, where you could do a bit more pre-flop node locking, and you could just see your exact strategies against someone who's calling too tight. Or on the contrary, if someone's just flicking it in with 6-5 offsuit and they're just going bananas, they don't care, don't know what ICM is, and they're just going ballistic, then we might need to go much tighter than this. You just got to use your brain. Don't always just default to GTO Wizard. If you want to become more advanced with GTO Wizard, I put together a master class which includes everything you need to know to become a master with solvers. It's the top link in the description below. Make sure you check that out. And if you use code solver, you'll get 25% off, which is exclusive to viewers of this video. So, all right, cool. Yeah, let's dive into another spot. Another spot you're using GTO Wizard wrong is defending from the big blind. So let's just look at a chip EV spot. Let's say it is early stages, under the gun opens, and you're in the big blind. Yeah, we're gonna want to be tighter for sure. We're gonna fold some ace X, maybe some weaker queen X, some of these offsuit one gappers. But what if under the gun's a complete fish? What if under the gun is just spewing away post flop? Let's look at what they're supposed to be opening, right? So they're supposed to be super tight, 16.5%. People are impatient, especially if you're playing live. Back to the example of playing a $400 WSOP circuit event live. Like people are just like want to play poker. Like I said, they might have drove a couple hours. They might have had to save up a bunch of money to play this event, sold some action, whatever. But they're not coming there to fold They will later stages once you get close to the money, that's when you can apply pressure, but early stages, if you think they're only opening 16.5%, you're out of your mind. Ace 2 suited, they're opening pure. They're gonna get in there with jack 8 suited, probably ace 10 off, ace 9 off, king 10 off. They're not folding these hands. So because they're opening wider than they should, playing a little bit too many hands, which is a mistake of a lot of players, playing too many hands, not having enough patience, things of that nature. Not only are we not facing the assumed range from GTO Wizard, but we're also up against a person that's not going to play perfectly post flop like they're assuming. GTO Wizards assuming we're playing against a perfect poker playing robot. So not only are they assuming we're playing against a really tight range pre-flop, but then once we defend and get to the flop, it's assuming they're finding range bets. It's assuming that when we donk bet, they're going to find raises and put us in tough positions. They're just not going to do that. They're going to play very honestly. So not only does our EV go up because they're playing too many hands pre-flop, but our EV of defending a bit wider also goes up because they're making egregious mistakes post-flop. So I'm not saying go bananas, and I still would like lean towards folding the ace two off, ace three off, just because the verse implied odds at the stack depth are really, really poor. But maybe flick in the 5-4 off pure, even though it says it's only a small frequency. Flick in the 6-5 off pure because those hands are going to be a lot more live against their pre-flop opening range. And for the reasons I listed, the EV of these hands are just going to go way up. If you were able to tell the solver these things, it would agree with you and it would probably defend nearly any two cards. But we don't want to do that. Still fold the worst hand, still fold the ace X, king X that they're just going to have us dominated with. But don't be afraid to defend a bit wider. And then same thing within ICM with defending ranges. With the implementation of ICM pre-flop and post-flop, we could actually see how tight we need to be. Like let's go to near bubble and we'll give hijack a lot of chips. 50, we'll have hijack min raise, and then we're in the big blind with a pretty short stack, but we're not like short enough that we're not going to make the money. So we got to be pretty tight. So that's the situation. And you'll hear from a lot of poker coaches, you'll hear from a lot of training videos. In the big blind, we should be defending any two suited cards. And with the implementation of GTO Wizard ICM preflop, in the last couple years, we've learned that you don't want to defend any two suited cards in ICM, especially near the bubble when you're covered and you have a pretty vulnerable stack that is at risk of bubbling. So the idea is you don't want to flop a weak flush draw and have to go broke on the bubble. But the deviation in this spot's going to be you're going to want to go actually a little bit tighter than this suggests. So let's look at what hijack's strategy is. So it's assuming they're going bananas, right? Raising 40% of the deck. They've got all kinds of shoves with suited middling hands. Reason being is look at the stacks behind 4 big blinds, 12 big blinds, 13 and a half big blinds, 15 big blinds. So if they shove, they're only 15 big blinds effective. So they could find all these open shoves with suited connectors, small pocket pairs, hands of these nature just to get us to fold. And then even when we call, they have decent equity. How often are you seeing this from the average population? You're at a $400 circuit event or you're playing an $11 rebuy online. You're not playing against Alex Fox, and he's not following this strategy. He's not opening 40% of the deck. He's not shoving 22%. This suggests that they should only fold 37 and a half. But a lot of people are just going to fold queen five off. They're definitely not open shoving these combos. So what's that tell me? They're probably opening a little too tight, right? Before, when Under the Gun was supposed to open 16 and a half, I was like, no, they're opening a lot wider than this, so we can defend wider. But in this situation, they're not open ripping these hands. They're not opening these blocker combos they're supposed to apply a lot of pressure on us with. So when they do raise, they're just going to have ace 8 plus, suited ace X. They're going to have stronger king X suited, but not all of them. And most of these are supposed to just shove. They're not opening any of these weaker suited combos. Just in general, if you know they are, then let's look at our strategy again. Then sure, find the shove with ace three off, defend 9-5 suited still. But what I'm suggesting is you're not against a perfect poker playing robot. So we're gonna have to make massive adjustments. And in this spot, it's on the tighter end. I think we should just be folding 9-5 suited, 8-4 suited, which is break even anyway. It's not making much. And then ace three off, if we shove ace three off, we're just going to run into a lot because they're not really thinking correctly. And they're not thinking, oh, I cover all the stacks behind. I should be going bananas. A lot of people are like, oh, the bubble's coming up. I don't really want to like lose 15 big blinds. In their mind, if they shove 10-7 suited, which let's take a look. Yeah, 10-7 suited is printing money as a shove for them. They're thinking if I shove 10-7 suited and the big blind wakes up with it and calls, I have 35 big blinds now. And all of a sudden, I don't love my position on the bubble. So they're just not thinking properly. They're not thinking, I'm out here for blood. I'm here to apply pressure. They're more so just trying to preserve their stack, playing way too tight. So as a result, yeah, I wouldn't shove pocket twos. I'd probably just defend. Even though it says there's a big EV difference, like 0.24 for shoving and then 0.16 for calling. If it's an old man, 84 years old with this 50 big blind stack, and they've maybe raised once or twice over the last 3 orbits, they're clearly not following this strategy. Just because we study GTO and GTO is our foundation for a lot of spots, we need to be willing to make massive adjustments because our opponents, for the most part, don't know what GTO even is. So why play perfect GTO if they're not playing perfect GTO? Use this as the foundation and then adjust one way if they're playing too tight or another way if they're playing too loose. You might have someone that's just absolutely spewing, and instead of folding 37.5% of the time, they're just opening 7-2, 8-2, 9-2, and they might not be wrong. That might be a good player that's doing that because they know that you're maybe defending too wide, like any suited hands, or maybe you're not punishing them like you should because they're opening too wide. Because I do advocate a shove like ace three off, pocket twos if they are going wider than they should. But this is the strategy, assuming they're going bananas, and we're still pretty snug. We're still not defending any two suited cards. We're not defending queen seven, queen six. So it is villain dependent, but I'd say in general, if you play online and you're playing $6 buy-in up to a $55 buy-in, or if you're playing live in tournaments that are maybe local $160 buy-in, all the way up to a $1,000 buy-in at the win. I played a $1,000 buy-in at the win this summer, and there was still limping going on, stuff like that. For the most part, it was tougher than a WSOP event that would cost 600. But in general, population isn't playing this strategy. If they are, just follow this. But in this spot specifically, yeah, I advocate for going even a bit tighter because people are just playing a little bit too tight themselves. Let's just find one more example. Obviously, the most profitable position in poker is the button. And even a GTO RFI strategy, which means raise first in on the button, people still aren't finding enough raises. But you should be going even wider than GTO suggests. And let me show you why. So let's just go to a normal spot, like 50% left ICM. Let's just say you get in level 6 of a tournament. This is pretty early stages. You still have registration open, but it's not pure chip EV. Pretty common spot in a tournament. Whether you get in on time and it's a few levels later, or you get in a bit late. Let's just say you're on the button with 50 bigs and you cover the blinds 40 and 48. It's going to say we're going to open like 50% of hands, 51.2%. Nice. So this is what we're supposed to be raising. And a lot of people aren't even finding this threshold. If you go in your poker tracker for, you should filter for button RFI spots, raise first in spots, and just see if you're hitting this threshold, 51.2%. Even if it's chip EV, even if it's ICM, like you should still be getting to 40-ish percent. And then chip EV could be as high as 55% if you're super deep stacked. But a lot of people are probably missing Jack 2 suited, 8-7 off, even though it says it's a small frequency, break even, King 6 off. It's just not natural. They just feel like bad hands. But I'm advocating you should probably even open King 5 off, King 4 off, 9-4 suited, 7-6 off. I know it sounds bananas, but the reason being is let's look, we raise and then here's small blind strategy. 40 bigs effective. They're supposed to shove Jack 10 suited through King 10 suited. That's never happening unless you're at a Triton and you're up against Alex Kulev or some Latvian on ACR. Sure, they'll find that once in a while. But in general, let's just say you're playing a live poker tournament in Florida. You got Betty Sue on your left and then Grandpa Joe in the big blind. They're just not going to find this 40 big blind shove. And then it says there are suited broadways like King Queen suited, Ace 10 suited plus, even some offsuit Ace X. Supposed to three bet non all into 7.5. They're probably just calling Ace Jack suited. They're probably just folding Ace 7 off. So if they're folding those hands, the value of our steals go up, right? That's why we could VPIP wider. And then big blind, people in general just three bet way too tight from the big blind. They just have it. They have nines plus, ace queen. That's what they have. They'll just defend eights or lower. They'll just defend suited connectors. They'll just defend suited broadways. So if they're not going to three bet us with king nine off at some frequency, some of these baby offsuit ace X, a lot of these blockerish combos, let's just filter for the 10 big blind raise. They're just not doing this. And not only are they not doing this, but they're not making their three bet big enough. They're not going 10 big blinds. They're probably just going to make it 7, 8 and allow you to get a good price in position. So if small blind's not three betting us enough, not finding big shoves, and then big blind's not three betting us enough, and when they do, they're giving us a better price than theory suggests, then yeah, we should open wider and be really, really, really happy about it. And this is going to be the spot in our database. If you filter for it, we're going to be printing the most money. So why not take this spot? Like, don't worry about, oh, shoot, that four bet pot I played, that was really tricky. Let me study that for 6 hours. Like, no, it's a waste of time. Focus on raising the button more. So make sure you check the top link in the description below if you want to learn more about GTO Wizard. The masterclass includes everything you need to know. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. I'm going to be uploading videos just like this 3 times a week on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at noon Eastern. And hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and see you in the next video.